Son of Frankenstein is about Frankenstein's son. He and his family return to his hometown where everybody hates him because of what father of Son of Frankenstein did, with the whole bringing to life a horrible monster that killed people and all that. But when his father's old grave robber buddy, Ygor, shows up and reveals that the monster is somehow still alive in a hidden room within the old laboratory, Son of Frankenstein gets to work bringing back his long-lost brother, because, you know, they both have the same father, technically. You know, get it? They're both the sons of Frankenstein. Ygor, however, the other horrible monster of Dr. Frankenstein's making, has plans of his own, using the monster to get revenge on the townspeople that previously tried to hang him. The village reassembles the old tried and true pitchfork and torch mob and takes to the streets in violent protest. But when the monster suddenly threatens the son of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein swashbuckles him to death and he dies. I love ending everything with, and he dies.
And then he dies. So after Dracula's daughter, Universal decided to say no more horror films for a couple of years. Wow. Film historians like to say that between 1931 and 1936 period was Universal's first horror cycle, and I might have those numbers wrong. It might go a little bit farther back than that, but sort of like how today's Marvel films have their own phases. You know, we had phase 1, phase 2, and so on and so forth. And each phase has different groups of films. Sort of the same with Universal. They had their own horror cycles, is like what they like to call them. After a year or so with no movies, Universal decided to re-release Dracula and Frankenstein into theaters. And lo and behold, it was a huge hit. And again, we have to remember, even though there's only like 3 years in between these movies, 3 years was a long time back then, especially when there was no television. So you were waiting for a long time if you were anticipating another one of these types of films to come back out in theaters.
Long enough to completely rewrite your lore.
Yeah, you could completely forget about everything because it's been a couple of years. So Universal decided to dust off the old monsters and make another cycle of these films, starting with this film, Son of Frankenstein. It only makes sense to bring back the two main characters that kicked off these films, Karloff and Lugosi. Both return, with Karloff as the monster again, and Lugosi playing a new character.
Who are you? My name is Ygor.
Ygor, a character that has become synonymous with the Frankenstein myth in the pop culture zeitgeist, which I think we'll go talk about a little bit, but a lot of times you watch the first Frankenstein film and you're like, yeah, that guy's Ygor. And you're like, no, that's Fritz.
That's Fritz.
You're like, well, where's Ygor?
And he's a hunchback, not a Batman neck. He's got Batman neck, you know? Like where you can only turn like this.
He's like this, you know, Ygor, you know?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? You see that? They hanged me once, Frankenstein. They broke my neck.
If you read the Frankenstein novel in a class or something, teacher would be like, yeah, Igor's not in this book. Igor doesn't exist. Igor's first introduction is in this movie.
You never had anything to worry about if you actually read the book, but that's the perfect one of those questions where you could say, so what'd you think about Ygor? And they'd be like, oh, Igor's great. He's the hunchback. He's got the hump and all that. You get an F. you didn't read the book.
You didn't read the book. Okay, so this time around, we don't get the masterful James Whale, but Roland V. Lee, who had his own notes on the script. The original script had many more references to Bride, and Ygor wasn't even in it, but instead, Inspector Krogh character was the main antagonist. Originally, this film was also going to be shot in color, but after some camera tests, the studio had changed their mind, mostly because the makeup on Karloff didn't really work out. So they were like, let's just stick to black and white. Yeah. A little more classy that way.
In black and white, he looks scary and all that, but in color, he would have to be green, right? Isn't Frankenstein green, according to my mug here?
Oh.
He's green.
That's a nice looking mug.
Right?
I got one of those.
Isn't the monster green? No, the monster is not green, black and white, but here he's green. When did this monster become green?
I don't know how to answer your question.
Do you like my mug, by the way?
I do like your mug. I also like my mug. We now have official Universal Studios mugs, but ironically, they are not the likeness and of the actors that play them. Like they are just slightly off enough to be like, yeah, that's not.
Well, this one
that's not that actor.
This is totally
no,
Karloff.
It's not.
Are you sure?
It is not. Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. It fool me. Yours. Dracula looks nothing like.
No.
You know, he looks like AI.
You know what he looks like? He actually looks more like the Spanish Dracula.
He totally does. Yeah.
He does. He's got a little more of a Spanish Dracula look to him.
Anyways, we're consuming beverages out of these. These are actually available if you the product link. I'll just link it right now. Somewhere on screen you can click a thing and buy these because they're awesome. They're actually really good mugs. And then McCurdy and I get a couple of cents.
Come join the club. Great for Halloween. These are like great mugs to have for Halloween.
Yeah.
Buy the whole set, you know? Have fun with that.
I think I will.
It's going to be great. So joining the cast is Basil Rathbone, playing the titular character of Baron Wolf von Frankenstein. He's probably best known for playing Sherlock Holmes in a series of films during this era. Wolf was at one point going to be played by Peter Lorre. And for our Bond fans, if you remember, he played Le Chiffre in the very first screen adaptation of the Bond book, Casino Royale. But Peter Lorre is a guy that's synonymous with a bunch of other films. So it's like, no surprise they want Peter Lorre in this movie, but they didn't. They got Basil Rathbone.
Basil kind of looks Basil kind of looks more like the original, like his father.
Lionel Atwill plays Inspector Krogh.
Inspector Krogh, District Police.
Josephine Hutchinson plays Baroness Elsa von Frankenstein. Found out she had appeared in one of my favorite Hitchcock films, North by Northwest. Just a fun side point. Donnie Dugan plays the other titular character, Peter von Frankenstein, because he is technically the son of Frankenstein, even though he's the grandson.
That's the next movie, okay? Don't spoil it.
Okay, calm down.
And once again, I'm calling on any living Frankensteins to please replace McCurdy's f***ing retard brain. Donnie's name is clearly Donnie Dunnigan, not Dugan. Jesus Christ!
Okay, calm down. But what's funny is I found out that Donnie is still alive and kicking as of this recording at the age of 90.
Dude.
Which is kind of crazy to think because most of the actors in these films have long passed away.
Yeah.
He's actually a retired Marine and he voiced young Bambi in the film Bambi.
Wow.
So, it's a fun little piece of trivia. Then quickly rattling off a couple of returning people on other Universal films that we have seen thus far. Edgar Norton, who plays the butler, he was in Dracula's Daughter. Lawrence Grant, the burgomaster, who is in this film, was in Werewolf of London. You might recognize this one. Michael Marks, the guy who was in the wagon. He was one of the people that, I guess, got Ygor hung at one point. The guy that the monster goes to kill. That's the same actor, played the father, Ludwig, who had the daughter, and she,
carried her into town.
Yeah. He didn't come back in Bride to reprise that role, but just played by somebody else. But yeah, you see him again in this film, which is kind of cool. And then Lionel Belmore, who plays one of the jurors, was the original burgomaster in Frankenstein. On an obvious side note, this film was a very obvious big inspiration to Mel Brooks' parody film, Young Frankenstein, down to kind of the overall plot.
Dr. Frankenstein, are you all right?
My name is Frankenstein!
I'd say this plot, but he also combines all of Frankenstein Bride and Son of Frankenstein into Young Frankenstein.
But specifically like the inspector from Young Frankenstein.
May I be the first to offer you my hand in friendship?
That little bit, that was pulled directly from this film.
That character is just ready to be in a comedy. In this, he never slips into being funny.
Have you found him? Dead or alive?
No, but he'll be back. He's done this sort of thing before, these sudden disappearances. Oh, can I give you a light?
Thank you, no.
He's super serious.
He's just awesome. You could just take that character with all of his mannerisms with his arm and stick it in a comedy and it would work just as well, But you don't laugh at him in this movie, but you would laugh at him in a Mel Brooks movie. It's bizarre.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
I've seen this one before. It's been a while, but you've never seen any of this movie. So what was your general take on it?
Okay.
How do you feel about this? Where would you rank this movie?
I appreciate this movie. There is one thing that bugs me about knowing that the decisions they made were driven by this guy. It's a Frankenstein movie, so we got to put in the monster, which of course we know he was atomized at the end of Bride.
The lever! Get away from that lever! You'll blow us all to atoms!
Who cares if you can bring him back in a way that is whatever? Let's just get back to it because we love our Frankenstein movies. Let's get going. But there is a massive, massive potential story here that was not explored because they had to emphasize bringing back Boris Karloff as the iconic monster. And so I ask you, McCurdy, what is that story that you, knowing me, I watched this and the potential to have one of the most meaningful Frankenstein stories ever told for a sequel, specifically for a sequel to the original, which I kind of regard Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein as one story. If you're going to make a sequel called Son of Frankenstein, what should it have been? Go.
Okay, so as a filmmaker and a screenwriter, all the pieces to what I think you are thinking are on the screen. As I'm watching the movie, I'm like, Frankenstein comes with his son and his wife, his son. The name of the movie is Son of Frankenstein. He comes to the castle.
Yeah.
And obviously, this son, he's a cute little boy. We get all these cute little boy moments.
Well, hello.
Good morning, son. Did you have a nice sleep?
Yes,
What are you going to do now?
I'm going out hunting.
So adorable.
A lot of emphasis
They
on a
just
relationship with his son.
This little boy, he's so cute. Nothing could harm this little boy. But what else do we have in this story? We have this creepy psychopathic character named Ygor hanging around the castle. Now, what could Ygor do? What if he killed the little boy?
Yes.
What if Ygor, or, maybe take Ygor out of it for a second, maybe something happens to the boy, maybe he falls down a pit, something happens to him.
Yep.
The boy dies.
Yep.
But everybody in the town knows that Frankenstein is like this guy who can bring people to life, bring people back to life. And it so happens his son comes back, and now his son has died.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Would it not be possible for him to go, hey,
We can't do any of this.
I
No,
can't-
we got, where's Boris
I have to
Karloff?
bring back my son.
Where's the monster? Where's the thing
We
that everybody's
can't.
paying a ticket for? Ugh.
Right.
Fire
You
that
couldn't do that
producer.
story.
Fire that asshole. and then take what we have there and make something that takes what we previously had, the whole story of Heinrich von Frankenstein, and elevates it. Because what you have, and the reason why I wanted to ask you that is
I'm
because
assuming I got it
assumed,
right. I
yes,
got it
100%.
right.
100%
I
you
was
got
like
it right.
thinking about it as you asked me that question like earlier this week, and I was like, okay, I'll keep it in mind. And as I'm watching the movie, I'm like, yeah, it makes total sense. I do have a feeling there's two reasons why I think they didn't go that route, though. One may have been, or I should say, at least one reason I think of.
This
besides
right-
the obvious reason
right
that you're pointing
That's
out.
number
like, you
one
gotta bring
reason
Boris.
right there. Yeah.
That's number one. The other reason I think child murder in film.
Exactly. They would
especially at
never have
that
done it
age,
back then.
Never
they would
worked.
never have done it back then. I think in a previous episode I mentioned Pet Sematary, which had the balls to do that. But yes, in the 30s, in the late 30s, they weren't going to do that. But isn't that unfortunate? Because all of the elements are there, right? And the reason I asked you in the first place was because I was like, I'm not some fucking genius putting this together. I guarantee somebody else has thrown this out there at some point, how much of an opportunity it was, because obviously you have a guy returning home. You have this little prodigal son thing. He's coming home haunted by his father's legacy, right?
Yes, because of the things my father did there.
We come to meet you, not to greet you. I deliver you these on the instructions of your late father.
Thank you.
The large box contains certain papers pertaining to the estate. The small one, the key that will open it.
Thank you.
It is unfortunate that we cannot offer you a more cheerful welcome, but we can.
He is the son being punished for the sins of the father. So in this new story we've been talking about, so much so that he hates his father. Right? Hates him so much so that he would never, ever even think of repeating the same mistake that he did, right? He would never, ever do this unless, as you said, what if something happens to the boy? So, who's the most important person in this young Frankenstein's life? His son. They keep bringing the son in, and look how cute he is, and there's scene after scene of that. So, like you said, imagine him dying somehow. You have that shoddy railing or whatever, but what if Ygor did it to coerce him into picking up where his father left off? Like, well, now you have no choice.
Something along those lines, yeah.
Now you have no choice to do it because, no, I'm not going to, I'll never do what my father did. I hate my father. Well, your son's dead now, so now you have to, and then, perfect, right? So Wolf's devastated. That's when he finds his father's old records, right? It's like Casper or something. In the old office, there's something, and he finds the old records.
Yeah, then he figures it all out.
And then he reads that note verbatim. Even if the Burgermeister gave it to him or whatever, he gets it, and he reads it, and he says no.
My son, herein you will find my faiths, my beliefs, and my unfoldments. A complete diary of my experiments, charts, and secret formulas. In short, the sum total of my knowledge, such as it is. Perhaps you will regard my work with ridicule, or even with distaste. If so, destroy these records.
And he's about to burn it, but he doesn't burn it, right? He holds on to it for some reason. Then the kid dies. So then, of course, he gives in to the temptation to bring his son back from the dead, because who wouldn't? You know, that would be one of the most important moral tales in this series, giving a whole new meaning to the title Son of Frankenstein. F***ing duh. But as you said, they would never do that. So he once again plays God instead of acceptance that bad things like death are necessary. That would be taking what the first movie did.
In the name of God, now I know what it feels like to be God.
And twisting it ever so slightly to make it just as meaningful. Not the exact same.
Perhaps death is sacred, and I've profaned it. Oh, what a wonderful vision it was. Think of the power to create a man. And I did. I did it. I created a man. And who knows, in time I could have trained him to do my will.
He's not playing God just to do so,
Yeah.
but he's doing it because he's doing what any father would be tempted to do if they could bring their dead son back to life. Taking the same theme and elevating the out of it. Instead, it around with this monster in the basement, and by the third act, it starts to get really frustrating, but we'll get to that. But just to cover off on that theme, as far as death being necessary, he even says at one point,
"But I just hope we don't have any more nights like last night."
Well, it's nights like that that make beautiful mornings like this.
emphasizing the idea that without death, there is no beauty to life.
You got to have both. You got to have a light and a dark, a yin and a yang.
Yes, there's no light without dark. There's no hot without cold. You know, you need these things. And so it would be so unbelievably meaningful if that's what we got. Instead, this movie's specifically about legacy. He states explicitly in the beginning to the townspeople, the village people, let the past remain buried.
I quite realize that it was my father's misfortune to be the unwilling, unknowing cause of tragedy. I'm so sorry that I don't remember him, because I've been told that he was a good man. And I know how greatly your tragedy must have weighed upon his mind. I can't undo the wrongs that you've suffered, but I beg of you, let the dead past remain buried. My wife and I and our son, we want so much to be your friends.
Everybody in this story, everybody is dealing with their past. You have Son of Frankenstein, Wolf, so his name's Wolf. You have Wolf trying to repair the sins of the father that he is seeing punishment for. An entire town called Frankenstein hates him. Now the town is actually called Frankenstein before. I don't think it had a name. I mean, it makes sense. Obviously, it makes sense. The town is named after the wealthiest family who was always running things.
Good day, Herr Baron. Well, what do you want?
You know,
Right.
It's not crazy to do that. It's appropriate.
Yeah, because the first movie, like, I think within the books, they always just, I don't even think they refer to any town or place of where they live.
Yeah.
You just get the subtle hint that maybe they live somewhere in Bavaria, which could mean Germany, somewhere in that region. So, you know, it's kind of fun that they're just like Frankenstein, you know. That's the name of the town.
But he'll find no friends here. Nothing but locked doors and darkened windows. Locked hearts and bitter hatred. Let that too be part of the Frankenstein heritage.
Meanwhile, you have Ygor getting revenge on the people for killing him, you know, or trying to kill him, or actually killing him before he came back to life somehow.
Tell us the truth, or we'll hang you again and make a better job of it next time. No, you no can hang me again, can they?
No, that's been settled. You were hanged and pronounced dead.
No.
But he was not dead.
He was pronounced dead by Dr. Berger. And all the others Berger's pronounced dead for the last 30 years have been dead, haven't they? If Ygor came to life again, it's the devil's work, and not the court's.
You mean to say that if he commits another crime that he can't be hanged again?
Well, yes, but I do nothing. I hear Frankenstein. He's a good man. He paid me money. Well, you watch him. And if he starts to do anything like his father, and you don't tell us, I'll see that you hang again.
He's also a monster of Dr. Frankenstein's making. And the monster seems to be doling out revenge as well, because there's this weird body count going on. People who were found with exploded hearts.
There have been 6, all unsolved, and all men of some prominence in the village. In each case, the autopsy disclosed that death had been caused by a violent concussion. There were no marks on the bodies, except a slight discoloration or bruise at the base of the brain. The hearts of all the victims were ruptured. In fact, They had burst.
So bit by bit, Ygor reveals that he's sending the monster out to kill people for him so he'll have an alibi via his flute playing, which is why he sits in the window and plays so everyone will see him and hear him while the monster commits the murders.
It happened one night when he was outside.
Outside?
Yes, he was hunting.
You also have the inspector dealing with his past, how his whole life was robbed by the monster when he was a kid, having his arm ripped off.
I was but a child at the time, about the age of your own son, Herr Baron. The monster had escaped and was ravaging the countryside, killing, maiming, terrorizing. One night he burst into our house. My father took a gun and fired at him. But the savage brute sent him crashing to a corner. Then he grabbed me by the arm. One doesn't easily forget, Herr Baron. An arm torn out by the roots. No, my lifelong ambition was to have been a soldier. But for this, I, who command 7 gendarmes in a little mountain village, might have been a general.
That makes him eternally vigilant that it will never happen to anybody else. As far as the best character goes, Ygor is cool, but the inspector is a straight G. I'll just say right now, he's very toast-worthy. This man is very toast-worthy. The inspector is the best part because he acts as tangible evidence that Son of Frankenstein can't ignore or trivialize. That whole opening is Wolf saying, people blew it out of proportion, and I don't believe any of these stories, and my father was a good man. And, the townspeople are like, F off. And then he meets the inspector, and he's like, do you actually have any real evidence? Did you ever see the monster? And he just calmly and bluntly explains to him, yes.
That my father instilled life into a dead man is perfectly true. But I'm also convinced that the stories of this creature have been so greatly exaggerated in the telling and the retelling that the simple folk of this neighborhood now believe him to have been the most fiendish monster that ever walked this earth. Do you honestly know of one criminal act that this poor creature committed? Did you ever even see him?
Most vivid recollection of my life.
He tore my f***ing arm off when I was a little boy. Right away, Wolf is like, oh, right. Like, I can't deny that. I've always been able to be in denial about this, but suddenly I can't. So before that, he blames Fritz.
It was the unforeseen blunder of a stupid assistant that gave his creation the brain of a killer instead of a normal one. Huh. And how my father was made to suffer for that mistake.
The assistant who stole the abnormal brain, he's saying all the stories are bunk, blah, blah, blah. He even calls out the fact that, and this was interesting. Did you catch how he even calls out the fact that people generally call the monster itself Frankenstein?
His name has become synonymous with horror and monsters. Why, 9 out of 10 people call that misshapen creature of my father's experiments
Frankenstein.
I didn't catch that, but that has been a ongoing thing
forever
since these movies have come out. My son did it. I'm wearing this shirt, getting ready for the show.
Look, it's Frankenstein.
And my son looks at it, he says, that's Frankenstein. I was like, no, that's the monster of Frankenstein.
Exactly. And obviously it's because Frankenstein immediately puts an image in your head as opposed to the monster doesn't, and saying the monster of Frankenstein is way too many African American. It's way too many syllables for me to take it seriously.
Sure.
You know me. I'm not, whatever. Whatever.
Okay.
Whatever.
You're going down this rabbit hole, bro.
But
you're digging.
Cut that. But the point being that that's why people do it over time, but eventually it sticks. And the fact that this movie being 1939, so from 31 to 39, within that time frame, they already addressed it. Back in its own decade, they were aware They made it known within the movie series that people call the monster Frankenstein.
Because they see the title Frankenstein, they go, yeah, that's the one with that monster, that iconic look of Karloff, and that's what they think of. And then, of course, this movie comes along, and it's more like a sequel than the previous, for two reasons. One, because there is like a history of where the Universal was like, no, we're not doing these movies anymore, and now we're doing them again. So there does feel like this, all right, guys, we're getting the gang back together. All right, let's get Karloff. Let's let it go see. Let's actually make another one of these horror films. And I think they did a really great job coming back and being like, you know, we're back, guys. We're going to make this movie. And that's what that movie kind of does feel like. Whereas Bride felt more like a weird continuation, but also like, hey, let's do it better. Let's do the last movie. Let's do it a little bit better. This feels more like, where could we go with this story? And there's also a lot of liberty taken, which I think we'll get into with this movie and what lore they decide to unbury, so to speak. But they just kind of say, yeah, the monster happened, this happened. And you can kind of have this loose interpretation of like, maybe what happened didn't exactly happen the way it did in this version of the story.
So getting into that, one of the first things you notice is that in the original 2, basically the Frankensteins lived in the village, but then Henry would just go off to this weird castle that it seemed like it was just a vacant castle that he took over and turned into a
laboratory.
lab. In fact, his dad actually says the lab is an old windmill.
Why does he go messing around an old ruined windmill when he has a decent house?
Whereas here, the laboratory is right next to the castle.
That's my father's laboratory. They blew the roof off when the monster was destroyed.
Well, hang on a second. The Frankenstein family owns a castle? So suddenly they have a castle, and the laboratory is next door. Before, it was just one thing. It was just one castle that had the lab in it, you know, and then they lived elsewhere. And I honestly appreciate it. I like that they did that because I've been saying this whole time that I don't want to go off to London again. I don't want any more high society parties. I want to be in the That's where I want to be. I want to be in this castle with lightning outside, and his wife is constantly like, I don't like it here. It's scary.
Yeah.
Why do we live here?
Oh, Amelia, are the bedrooms cheery? Yes, madam. Quite cheery. I think you'll be surprised.
Meanwhile, her husband's slowly going insane, and there's weird Ygor running around, and there's secret passageways.
And not just like weird, but there's like this German expressionist thing, like not just cinematography, but the art direction. This one, they turn it up to 11, where you have these creepy doorways and hidden passages, and Igor's like popping his head out windows and, you know, blowing on weird flutes that control things. Just all sorts of weird creepiness stuff, but also when you watch how like even the sets are built, and even their like living room and dining room area, it's got this very expressionistic look to it. It doesn't feel like a real place.
And with the way they light it plays into the weird design of
but
their
there's something about when you watch the first movie, the second movie, and then this one, there's also a change in like what actually was going on from the first and the second one as far as where they lived, because they definitely had a different art director and was like, yeah, let's make this look grander or whatever. But then again, the movie's also like, well, this movie takes place maybe 25 years later. So we could imagine that if it's several years later, then maybe they built another house. You know, we don't know, but I do love the look of this movie.
So speaking of changing your lore, the monster survived.
He's alive!
In the last movie, you said in your review, he was atomized or destroyed. They do kind of hold some of that stuff when Igor's like, this is a place for the dead.
Has he always been here?
Nearly always. This is place of the dead.
And, you know, when he says that, I'm like, it kind of a slight callback to Bride when he said,
Go! You live! Go! You stay. We belong dead.
That kind of thing. So I was like, okay, there's kind of some loose connective tissue there.
What's weird about it is that when we find the monster, he's not dead. He's just in a coma. And he's in a coma because he got struck by lightning.
Lightning strike.
But how did he get in here?
I find him and bring him home. But he walks no more.
Before this.
And
like,
yes, before
it's
this.
between
like a few months ago.
Movies.
Like he's been in a coma for a few months. So he's been alive for decades now, just hanging out with Ygor, I guess. I mean, it makes sense that they're such good buddies, I guess, because if you're accounting for the time.
You look weird, I look weird.
Yeah. And so
your friend, he's friends, you know?
Yeah.
He's my friend
friend.
So clearly they've been living in the laboratory for decades together. And so what was it that the monster was always looking for? He was looking for a friend, and they're both the leftover bastard children of Henry Frankenstein, you know? So I get their bond. We'll get into how I kind of wish it would have been developed even further. Right before that, the inspector says,
Hence the local superstition of the murdering ghost. Need I add that it is always alluded to as Frankenstein?
and people think that it's the monster again, you know, if not the ghost of the monster, which isn't one of the future movies called Ghost of Frankenstein. So
The next one's called Ghost of Frankenstein.
funny. So anyway, so yeah, there's this weird sulfur pit that keeps the lab warm. So they live in a cave right off the sulfur pit because it's like 800 degrees or 8,000 degrees or whatever it is. Quick note on that, though. I don't often bring up editing unless it's something that I just find like, what? But the first time Wolf peers into the sulfur pit, you see a body in there. And the first time I watched it, I was going, there's a body. Wait, is that Frankenstein or something? Or there's a body in there. Is that important? Is that some part of the story? But then by the end of the movie, you see why. It happened in the edit. For some reason, they couldn't find a shot without the body in it. But when he kicks, you know, he swing kicks the monster into the sulfur pit, it explodes and there's a dummy in there of the monster. And he kind of floats around a bit and sinks. They needed a shot of the sulfur pit not exploding. But they took that shot from just before the explosion. So there's clearly a body floating in there that I saw right away and was like, whoa, creepy, there's a body down there. But it turns out it was a mistake and not part of the story.
I didn't pick it up, but I might have not have been watching it as closely as you were.
It's a video
but
editor.
I mean, you probably were like, yeah, it's right there. Like, okay.
Yeah, so yay me.
You win.
I'm so awesome. No, I thought it was important though, and then it turns out it wasn't. Speaking of editing, there's something that I want to talk about just because it happens so many times in this movie, which is that nowadays, because everything's digital, if you want to do a cross dissolve, you know, where you have one image slowly fade into another, it's just a very quick digital effect that a computer just does. It just fades one out while the other one fades in. Beautiful cross dissolve. Yay. But what used to take place was that they had to order it, right? They had in their edit decision list, they had to say, I want to cross dissolve from this reel of film, this piece of film to this piece of film.
And you had to use an optical printer to do that.
Yes. So what they had to do was they had to make a cut. They had to cut off the tails of shot A, and they had to cut off the heads of shot B, and they had to run those through an optical printer. Think of it as like a projector that is just taking those two different pieces of film and combining them into one. Optical printer, boom. So you had to manually make this cross dissolve, and then you had to take that effect and you had to splice it back in, right at the heads and tails.
Right.
In that process, basically what happens when you run that film through an optical printer is that you get a decrease in resolution because it's like taking a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy.
Yeah, unless they were using a blow up at like a 70 millimeter, which they probably weren't because they were trying to do this on the cheap. They were probably using like the 35 millimeter. I don't know if they shot on 16 at this point. If they were probably shooting on some form of 35 is my guess, but they would be using a 35 millimeter print, and then they would have used an optical printer, and you see the effects very much so in these
which
movies.
Is why it's well broadcast, it's well telegraphed to the eye when a cross dissolve is coming, because suddenly, just like when you're watching a movie on streaming and suddenly your bandwidth drops, the resolution dips, all of a sudden the resolution dips, the effect happens, and then the resolution on a cut comes right back. And so the reason I bring that up with this movie is because there are like dozens of cross dissolves, dozens. Even in scenes where the action is continuous, they'll do it, which is unfortunate just because it's so intrusive. Because of the degraded resolution, cross dissolves are a little more intrusive, but like, you know, what are you going to do? But that's why they exist. That's why you see that solid resolution, degraded resolution, back to high resolution. That's why that happens. And it just has to do with working with film instead of what we have today.
Herr Inspector?
The inspector is another piece of the puzzle that feels like this doesn't seem like it adds up to the lore, because one, when we see Frankenstein, the first film, we pretty much see his entire day in and day out for what we're interpreting and what we're seeing in the movie. The main event that happens in that movie is the girl getting killed in the water. So there's no reference to some boy getting his arm ripped off ever. And of course, they're not going to show a boy getting his arm ripped off. But
they refer to attacks.
There's no reference or there's nothing there of that. And then even when we get to Bride, that whole movie is laid about he's not trying to harm anybody. And, you know, Pretorius.
Dr. Pretorius.
Pretorius is the one behind all that.
But that's not 100% certain, though. It's not crazy to assume that he could have had any one of these encounters that he had, and he accidentally went too far, especially with a child. You know, if he just grabs a kid a little too hard, he could do a lot of damage. So it's not, hey, that's bullshit. It's very believable. You know, I'm
not saying that the event couldn't happen, like in the realm of things. It's just I'm saying from the perspective of, I watched this movie, when would these events happen? Why would they have happened? That's where I'm coming from. But again, like, this movie's already playing very loosey-goosey with what happened in the prior movies. Regardless of me saying that, the movie doesn't care. It's just like, yeah, that Frankenstein movie, you remember it, right? Because people don't have Blu-ray players and DVD players and streaming. We can't rewatch any of these movies. So it's like, who cares?
Yeah, just call him Ygor. Like, it's a cooler name than Fritz. The inspector, though, at the end of their first scene, which we'll get into, I adore the inspector. But at the end of the first scene, he says,
when you need help, you have but to ring the alarm bell in the tower, and I shall hear it, wherever I may be.
Ring it, and I'll come help you.
I don't think he ever does that.
You expect that as a setup to something going down later, and that he'll ring the bell and he'll come running. And that's never paid off. So that's just another one of these things that just showcases, like you said, there was some other version where the inspector, I think you said he was the main antagonist. Occasionally you'll see these little vestigial things in there, you know? It's like, just cut that line.
To answer that a little bit more, though, when they were writing the script, Lee, the director, didn't like a lot of what was in the script and wanted rewrites of stuff. So this is another case of very, like, Marvel-esque thing where it's like they're handing the script to the people to make the movie, and the movie's not really finished. It's like a weird version of it. So there probably was stuff in the edit or in the script, and then they were making the changes the day of, and like, all right, here's the new script, you know, and they're changing it on the fly. So very possible that there was stuff that slipped in there, like the bell ringing, and we never got that scene, or there was a scene and they just cut it, or they never got time to film it. Who knows?
Unfortunately, a couple times, laziness is a word that comes to mind with this movie. I like this movie, but there's these
But you said you didn't like this movie.
That you just hate people who have sons. Like, did you notice the weird spatial discrepancy with the secret door in the wall and the hidden tomb room? It's like you have the door in the wall, and then you have the trap door, the cement trap door.
Yeah, I didn't understand. Like, watching the movie, I'm like, what is going on? Like,
it's completely off.
There's one trap door, and then they get into the laboratory, and then the pit's there. Then you go down the pit, there's a cave.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it.
The cave with the ladder and the pit is, I would say that's bad design, but it's at least consistent. When it comes to the secret door and the trap door, they both lead to the same place, like immediately, to where if you're paying attention, it makes no sense. And you're going, I guess they just did this to save money. Maybe I could give it a pass for that. It pays off because it's a cool moment when they pull the monster up out of the hole, but they could have just kept everything underneath that trap door instead of having the secret door in the wall, and it would have kept everything consistent. But instead, it's like you have these two entrances to the same place in a way that makes no sense. So I point that out because there seems to be this consistency of this movie just having imperfections to where I ultimately struggle with, and this is a Dr. No moment, the more, not simple perfection per se, because I don't think the original Frankenstein is perfect by any means. This movie's bigger and more enjoyable in certain ways, but then it also cuts corners and has a third act that is incredibly frustrating because eventually Ygor is just running roughshod all over Wolf, and Wolf is just not doing anything about the monster and about Ygor, and he's just kind of letting things happen, and until eventually the inspector just says,
Yet it would be too simple to hang old Ygor. Well, I don't trust him. I'm gonna find him and kick him off the estate. With your permission?
Yes. If you like.
You know what? I'm just gonna go shoot Ygor in the fucking face. How about that? And then he does. But up until then, he's not doing anything about the problem, and so it just leads to more problems that could have been solved if he would have just done something. And instead of him just being like, no, I can't call the inspector and turn Ygor in and turn myself in and just admit that I'm doing bad things. Instead, he's just like covering it up, but not working. If he was working towards something, it would make sense. But what was his goal? His goal was to, I guess, rehabilitate the monster.
Ygor, I made him walk, but I haven't made him well. He isn't well here. You understand? I must continue my experiments.
But like, what steps was he taking towards rehabilitating the monster?
I can see your point. I do like some aspects of what you were talking about, though. So within the plot, he first learns about his father's laboratory. He's introduced to Ygor. He first was gonna like shoot him, and then Igor's like, "Yeah, I've got Frankenstein's monster." And now his like the spell of science hits him, and I think he's a doctor, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if he's a scientist. I think he was a doctor.
You doctor? Yes, I'm a doctor, amongst other things.
So then he's like, oh, you know, I think I could bring him back to life. Because in the name of science, I need to do this. I need to bring him back to life in the name of science. Yeah. So he does all these experiments to figure him out first.
My father took a gun and fired at him.
Bullets. 2 bullets in his heart. And he still lives.
And then eventually he's turned on by it.
From his warped brain, down to the tiniest argumentative cell of his huge cock, he's unearthly. Every fantastic story told of him by the people of Frankenstein, I now believe to be absolutely true. I, as a man, should destroy him. But as a scientist, I should do everything in my power to bring him back to conscious life, so that the world can study his abnormal functions. That would vindicate my father.
He's like, I'm gonna bring him back to life. And then he does so, and it kind of happens in a weird way where it's like you don't see we don't have like a great it's alive scene.
You have a callback to it.
It's alive.
Alive, you mean?
Yes, alive.
But you said our experiments were...
Yes, I know. I too at first thought that we'd failed, but Benson, I've actually seen it walk. Oh, yes, it's like some huge animal.
But yeah, they set it up so they meet suddenly way after the electroshock therapy.
The inspector's in the house. That's the thing I like about this movie is when there's this little cat and mouse. You know, the little boy's telling him like, yeah, the giant came in my room.
A giant come in here woke me up.
A giant? What an imagination.
No, Amelia, it wasn't imagination. It was a giant. Come here woke me up. And when I got up, he had a hold of my arm.
Wolf's just like, yeah, that's a cute little story, son.
Yeah.
Let's
get you out of here.
Let's take a hike. Let's get you out. I love that. Yeah. And then there's a little bit more of that where he's like trying to cover up because he knows that the people in the town don't like that he's making this monster. And then of course people start getting wind of like, what's that Frankenstein doing with the laboratory? Like, I keep hearing things.
The servants have been moving large crates and boxes into the old laboratory.
And people who work at the mansion start coming to the Burgermeister, which I swear to God, I think he said Hamburgermeister at one point. He didn't say Burgermeister. Like very early in the movie, like right after he gets to the train, he's like Hamburgermeister.
Herr Baron Frankenstein?
Yes.
I am Burgermaster Stiller of the village, Herr Baron.
It's a great pleasure to see you, Herr Burgermeister.
I was like, did he say hamburger? Anyway.
I'll have to double check that one.
I could be wrong. It sounds like he says that. Anyway, they're getting suspicious of him and stuff. So then there's like that conflict is rising there, and I like that. And then I like how the people start dying.
Everybody wants to hang old Ygor again, yet he has a perfect alibi. He was constantly under observation when every murder was committed. It's curious that the entire jury that hanged him is dead.
And he's like, he has no control over it. So where you're talking about is where kind of in that pocket of like some of these jurors start dying because we find out that Ygor, because of his neck, he was hung for grave robbing.
They said I was dead. Then they cut me down.
Why did they hang you?
Because I stole bodies. They said
But he survived.
They emphasize that he did die, and yet somehow he came back to life. Like, he was declared dead, and then he came back to life, and so they're like, it was black magic or whatever, which is weird because with Frankenstein, sorry, I just did it. With the monster, he is analyzing his blood, and he's saying, like, he's superhuman. He's got this weird blood, and everything is big and all that. And Ygor even says,
but he's supposed to have been destroyed.
No, he cannot be destroyed. He cannot die. Your father made him live for always.
Implying that the monster is unkillable, that he's eternal. Like, retroactively kind of making it like, yeah, he could be in a fire, or he could blow up at the end of the Bride and survive, The
movie starts getting into this science fiction, these are science fiction films, don't get me wrong. Let's just put it this way. It starts teetering away from classic literature into more comic book as this movie goes on. This was classic literature. Now it's a comic book.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't hate it for that.
No.
But then you're like, and I will tell you this, Charlie, spoilers ahead, but we might be running through those grounds as we get farther along into these films, as we're going away from what was meant to be more classic, meaningful literature to more, let's be loose with the meaning and a little more comic booky and have a little more fun with these crazy, weird ideas. And that's where I think these movies are going towards. So this is kind of like the top of the roller coaster as we're going downhill.
Look how surprised I am that, having just come out of 25 James Bond movies where, remember my opening to Die Another Day? The cycle of life is the really cool, meaningful thing that we put a lot of thought into that is eternal, and then it gets goofy. Let's just eat your popcorn and shut up and enjoy the chase scenes, and then reboot it. Oh, and it's serious now. It's serious again, and goofy, and it just goes serious and goofy. That's the cycle of everything.
This is the top of that roller coaster as we're creeping down towards oh, these are going to get really ridiculous and
maybe
silly.
This is the transition movie.
But the things that you were talking about with the inspector and Basil, I do like Basil's performance where, you can see it in his face where they go to the close-ups where he's just kind of like, oh, they're on to me. But the problem what you're facing is that he's not doing anything.
First off, Basil's good, but he doesn't have anything on the actor who played his dad, who's just everything about him is just, he actually reads as crazy.
You're crazy.
Crazy, am I? We'll see whether I'm crazy or not.
I do like Basil so far as he's not supposed to be as crazy
Basil
as his dad.
Play crazy,
yeah,
though.
he doesn't need to be as crazy as his dad.
I don't think
he's just
really
more
like Basil's performance.
They're gonna catch me, whereas but so I'm not trying to compare them on that front. It's more like Frankenstein is so good, just down to his voice and just the sweat and the hair. I kind of
it's a little more manic.
Have that hair, right? Where you can just where you can get crazy with it, and he's
right.
It's alive, it's alive, it's alive. He is the highlight of that movie for sure. Even though we toasted James Whale for that,
very well.
Too bad he's not coming back because I'd love to toast him. Anyway, this is what I would have wanted though, because the movie is going so strong until we get to that point where all of a sudden Wolf isn't doing anything about these threats, Even though Ygor's kind of sneaking around behind his back, he's not doing anything about the threat, and he's also, I said before, I just kind of wish that he would have actually tried to rehabilitate the monster into a man, which would have delivered on the promise he wrote on his father's tomb. He crossed out the man who made monsters and wrote in the man who made men or whatever. And so, whether he's talking about himself or his brother, the monster, a little attempt would have been good. Instead, it just became about Ygor corrupting him. And again, we kind of put two and two together that maybe him and Ygor have a friendship from the last several decades. But Igor's also just kind of using him. So, but whatever, maybe they're buddies. I mean, they are kind of buddies. But we needed a scene of Ygor talking to the monster down in that cave. Basically doing that same thing that, remember the saint was like, hey, let me show you some love and humanity.
And sent me a friend to be a light to mine eyes.
And then the devil, Dr. Pretorius, gave him the opposite where he was using him.
Friend. Yes, I hope so. I think you can be very useful.
So Igor's doing the same thing as Pretorius, but it could have been a combination of the two, where it's like, nobody is going to love you, but I do. Ygor loves you because you and I are the same. Again, we're these forgotten bastard children of Dr. Frankenstein.
Right.
And all we have is each other. I'm a monster too. I'm a bastard child of an unloving father, just like you. We don't have that, and we also, which we don't necessarily need. I kind of get the gist of it, but it would have made Ygor even better because as awesome as Bela Lugosi is as Ygor, like he's a scene stealer for sure.
He's a bastard, is what he is.
He's a bastard.
Like, the whole movie, he's just coughing on the Burgermeisters. He's like, which is the funniest thing.
Yeah,
watching.
it's
He's
so
like,
good,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Hey!
Yeah.
He's just coughing on him.
Just coughing on everybody on his way out, you know.
And
He
he's
might as well
just
have,
like,
whipped it
oh,
out
sorry
and just pissed
about
on
that.
the floor. Yeah.
You know, and then even the town folks are like, shut up, Ygor.
Ygor, shut up! Play that thing all night.
Yeah,
Like, they literally say
everybody
that in the
hates
movie.
him. So that's what I mean. Something, just that scene that would have been just like him and his pet monster in the basement, and he's just saying like, Wolf Frankenstein will never love you. I'm the only person you have in the world. So he's using him, but he also kind of has this love for the monster. Like, he cares for the monster, right? And the monster cares for him. Building that up would have been good.
I hate putting it like this, but it seems like what you're asking is like a Disney Channel original movie where that's like, he brings the monster back to life, and then,
Ygor and
you know,
the
it's almost
monster.
like it's like an E.T. kind of story where like, okay, I'm going to train you and do all these things and teach you how to do this.
Yes, which would have coupled well with Wolf trying to rehabilitate him. So you have Wolf trying to turn him into
That's
a man.
what I mean. It's like
which
he
we
would have
never
been
saw.
like Wolf would have been like taking the monster around and like trying to teach him all these things.
Yeah.
And then like, of course, he, you know, his wife and his son are like, what's going on? And then eventually there would have been a point where like, oh, the cat's out of the bag. Like, I've got this monster, and they're kind of freaked out by it. And then of course somebody figures out about it.
Imagine trying to hide the monster from the wife, and you know, it would have been even more of that cat and mouse.
And then while that's all going on, Ygor would be like trying to kill people while that's just all going on with the monster. So it would add more depth to that whole situation. But of course, we don't get that. We just get him like, he made the monster, and now he's like trying to hide this big secret, but there's not really.
Yeah, it's like, dude,
he's not doing anything.
Your plan that you wrote on the tomb was that you were basically going to repair your father's legacy by bringing the monster back to life and then rehabilitating him into a man. And we're not seeing any attempt at that. We're just seeing you throwing darts and talking to the inspector. You know, there's a whole scene where he's standing there with Benson, and he's like,
But he loves Ygor and obeys him. My problem is how to make Ygor obey me.
like 20 minutes later, you're willing to just walk into the laboratory and just shoot him in the face. So why didn't you just do that right away?
And then it just feels kind of anticlimactic.
He tries to kill the monster. He picks up a rock to smash the monster's head, and Ygor intervenes. And then that's when he's like, you know, he's my bitch. Like, they have a little prison moment. He's like rubbing him. He's like, the monster's my bitch, motherfucker. Get out here. There is this cat and mouse, but a big part of it is like, why is Wolf not doing anything? I love all the stuff with the inspector. The inspector's looking for secret passages, and he's talking to the boy. He's trying to figure things out.
Has the giant paid you any more visits?
Yes,
Oh. He's a great big fellow, I imagine.
yes.
So big, possibly, he can hardly get through that door.
Oh, no, he doesn't come through the door.
No? Where does he come in, huh? Through the windows, through the fireplace?
Or through the wall.
Through the wall? Where?
Over there.
But then Wolf is just sitting around doing nothing. He's not trying to rehabilitate the monster. He's not trying to take out Ygor. He's just doing nothing. Remember the whole ring the bell thing and all come running? And then he doesn't go ring the bell. Like, just, they didn't even pay that off.
I do wonder if they were trying to invoke what was in the first film, where Frankenstein makes the monster and then abandons him. The movie doesn't seem smart enough to figure, like, to try to put those pieces together. There's a part of me that's like, was that where they were going with it? Where, like, he just kind of abandons the whole thing and is just like, yeah, I got this monster. I made a monster.
But he's driven by the repairing the legacy. Remember the scene where he's there with his wife, and there's a big portrait of his dad?
A terrific experiment. One that I wanted to surprise you with. One that would establish me and my work as something outstanding in the world of science.
He's not concerned about his work. He's concerned about saving his father's legacy, and he's not taking steps to do so. So it just comes across as a sloppy script, unfortunately. Because he kills Ygor, and then the monster's like, well, you killed my brother. Ygor is more of a brother than you are, so I'm going to kill your son.
He teases it, too. He's like, you think, I love that, where he brings the boy and he like raises him over it. And then you're like, nope, I'm putting him on the ladder.
And then the inspector comes in. Okay, again, the inspector is the best part of this movie. It's like the man was waiting his whole life for another fight with the monster. And so he charges right at him, allows the monster to rip off his fake arm that was real when he was a boy, and he pulls out his piece and just starts blowing away. But he ends up just acting as a distraction so that the dad can swashbuckle the out
It
of
is that whole thing is fun. That ending
it's fun. Yeah.
is a lot of fun. And I will say, I think that ending's even handled better than the end of Bride, as far as Bride, because we did talk about that. Like, Bride is drenched with tons of meaning.
All of the endings have sucked. Every one of these movies has had a ending.
Yeah. And this is like, okay, it tied up a lot better.
But here's the thing. It goes from that awesome moment of him rescuing his son with the inspector to...
Herewith I deed to you the castle and the estates of Frankenstein. Do with them what you will, and may happiness and peace of mind be restored to you all. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone. You know what? You can keep the castle. Bye. And the crowd's like, yay. Sorry that a bunch of people died again. Sorry about repeating the same mistakes my father made that led to the murder of more of your neighbors.
Goodbye, gentlemen.
Goodbye, Baron.
See ya. It's like...
It's like he didn't really get his comeuppance at all. It was like, everything was blamed on Ygor.
Yeah, it's like License to Kill. It's like, my wife's dead, but let's go fishing. It's the same thing. It's just like, sorry, bye.
See ya.
I die laughing by the time it says the end, because I'm just like, wait, they're not hanging him for doing the same thing? The whole movie is about these Frankensteins are scumbags, and let's watch this motherfucker day and night to make sure he's not bringing monsters back to life. And then he does, and then people die, and then he's just like, see ya, idiots. You can keep the castle.
Goodbye.
So all that being said, I have a firm ceiling with The Invisible Man. This does not surpass The Invisible Man for me, which, in short, The Invisible Man is just absolute entertainment and a solid story from A to B or A to Z with no filler. Whereas, again, the trouble I have is that I have no doubt it's above Dracula. No doubt it's below The Invisible Man. Does it surpass the original Frankenstein movie?
You know, at first I came in here thinking it does. But when you start laying out all these little like problems with the especially the end structure of the story, I'm like, I like the original more. There's like a wholeness to the original that this doesn't have. And even if you take off the ending, which is like Wales, like the studio interference ending where Frankenstein actually lives, which is what happens. And then
he lives and his father's just in the hallway being like, well, let's get drunk. Like, we don't even cut in to see him interacting with his wife.
You can kind of tell they wanted to kill him off and he would have died. I would ignore that and just be like, it's a much more serious movie. This movie is still a lot of fun. I still like this movie. But when you point out a lot of the holes in the script, I'm like, I do like it more than Dracula, but I don't know if I like it more than Frankenstein.
The atmosphere is on point, as we've said, through set design and, again, just like constant, just dark and stormy night in a castle and all these people haunted by the past and the inspector coming in being like, people have been dying, so I'm going to keep an eye on you. Everything, it makes such a strong promise in the beginning. And all the way, and then when the monster appears, you're like, this is kind of weird, but I guess I can stick with this. Let's see what they do with it. And his decision to bring him back to life, it's all leading to something, right? It's all leading to something. And even, Ygor doing his thing is great too, but there was no counterbalance to Ygor doing his thing from Wolf.
He does things for me.
And without that element, it starts to just sag, and you're like, you start to feel that this movie is 90 minutes as opposed to the 70 that they've been up to this point, which you'd think that they would use that time to maximize his story, and they end up not. He ends up playing darts for 45 minutes.
I think the 90 minutes does help this movie. It does make the movie feel more like what we expect out of a modern film.
I agree.
And I think also where I think the problems stem is like the Ygor character is great. And I love that they're using him as this manipulative character, but because they created him as this new antagonist, but they still left the inspector in there, it leaves little agency for Wolf von Frankenstein to do anything other than to save his son at the very end of the story.
Yeah.
And so then there's like this period in time between just the end of the movie after the monster's been created, but then Igor's doing his shenanigans and killing all these jurors, which I still like that aspect of the story. I thought that was actually pretty cool.
You made him kill Herr Neumüller. Yeah. Why not? Neumüller kills me. 8 men say Ygor hanged. Now 8 men dead. All dead.
Yeah. But then there's that weird period in time between that where all he's doing is trying to bait Inspector away to be like, I don't know how the butler died, and then there's this whole subplot with what happened to the butler.
Where's Benson? Why isn't he serving dinner?
We don't know, madam. He went up to the nursery for the baby's supper tray. We haven't seen him since.
Oh, yeah. Ygor killed the butler.
No one must know that he's here. No one know now, but you and Benson, man. Oh, he'll never tell. No, he will never tell.
But it wasn't Ygor who did it. Something did it. Oh, it was the monster.
Well, did you find Ygor? Yes, I got rid of him. Have a drink? How did you get rid of him? I killed him. He tried to murder me with his hammer, so I shot him. What are you going to do about it? Compliment you. For it was he who undoubtedly killed Benson. Benson? He's dead. Murdered. I just found his body in a secret passageway off the nursery. Here's his watch. It was in the possession of your son. Here's a bit of chain that was attached to Benson's vest. But Ygor didn't do it. Nor did you. Nor was it done by any ghost. There's a monster afoot and you know it. He's in your control. By heaven, I think you're a worse fiend than your father. Where is this monster? Where is he? I'll stay by your side until you confess. And if you don't, I'll feed you to the villagers, like the Romans fed Christians to the lions. I wouldn't put it past you. In the meantime, will you have a drink? Or would you like to play darts?
If Wolf was doing the investigating, if he had a little more agency, like he's doing something, maybe the movie would have gotten a little bit better. But for me, I'm like, I think Frankenstein, the first film, I think has a little more impact. I like one thing that I'm like thinking about right off the top of my head. We talked about child murder not being a thing in these movies. Frankenstein has a child murder in that movie that is really like an image that
this
you're like...
This movie didn't have the balls.
Didn't have child murder.
No, you're hurting me. No.
Didn't have the balls. The original, it had the balls. The original has that moment, and there's like that moment in itself is enough to be like, this is a freaking dark movie. And of course, you get all the little iconic moments of like, it's alive, and, Karloff walking backwards into the frame and all that stuff. That stuff's great. But I do think there's more of a story of being like, just from the originators of being like, yeah, you shouldn't do this. And they're like, but I want to do it. It's like, no, you shouldn't bring people back from the dead.
You're crazy. Who are you saying's crazy? Yeah, call me crazy. And, and he is that quintessential mad scientist, and he is untouchable next to anybody in this movie. The one thing I said about Frankenstein was that I really wish that we had tried to get to know the monster more before they're just like, just kill him. This isn't working out, just kill him.
It's murder. It's our only chance.
This movie does the same. It commits the same sin. He commits the same sin his father did, which is like, you're not even trying to rehabilitate him. So you say agency for him maybe to be investigating things.
Wolf
I think
done
that
something.
Wolf should have been constantly trying to work with the monster, and it's not working. And yet it seems so easy with Ygor. So he starts to kind of be like suspecting that something's going on, but he's distracted because he's so determined to make this work. But instead you don't see him working. You just see him playing darts. And trying to run around the inspector instead of do anything, and that's what's frustrating. So beyond that, Bride obviously took the themes of the original and mastered them. So that's it's untouchable. You know, but this movie tackles something else, right? Like not playing God per se, but a man solely concerned with repairing his father's legacy for his family's sake.
I've come here, Herr Baron, to assure you of protection.
Protection? From whom?
From a virulent and fatal poison.
Oh, am I to be poisoned then?
You're poisoned already. By your name.
And in doing so, he ends up making the same mistakes. He pulled his father's skeletons out of the closet instead of just leaving them lie.
But mayhap where I have failed, you will succeed. You have inherited the fortune of the Frankensteins. I trust you will not inherit their fate.
Literally resurrecting his father's past monster. So, monsters, plural, you know, with Ygor. So it's kind of the same theme as the original, which was don't try to defeat death. Here it's some things are just meant to be left alone. Just learn from mistakes and move on. Don't try to fix them if they're unfixable. People in denial of their imperfection instead of just accepting imperfection as reality, right? Like that, it's necessary. My favorite line of this whole movie is when he's reading his father's note and he says,
like every seeker after truth, you will be hated, blasphemed, and condemned.
That's awesome. That's what the whole movie should have been, is like, if you're going to do this, you need to understand that that's the messianic figure, is the person who puts truth above all, and everybody hates him for it. And that's me. How many people, like, comment after comment being like, stop telling the truth about my favorite movie. You know, that people like when you tell the truth about the movie that they hate, but when you attack the movie they love, they hate you. And that's the same thing with everything in life. You tell the truth, you're not going to be a very popular person. But that's not delivered on by the end.
Goodbye.
Instead, it's just like Wolf is just dropping the ball. Like he's just not, like he's not doing anything about Ygor. Oh yeah? I'll just go shoot him in the fucking face. How about that? And then all of a sudden he just goes and does it. And it's just, again, it just reads as sloppy as opposed to the original. Again, it's the Dr. No argument of the original just being starts with guy, brings body back to life, tries to tame said monster briefly, and then gives up, tries to kill him, goes off to get married, thinks he's a failure.
He abandons
monster
him,
returns.
he neglects him.
He abandons his child. He abandoned his boy.
I've abandoned my child! I've abandoned my child! I've abandoned my boy!
And then monster comes back and nobody understands monster. Monster accidentally kills little girl, and then pitchfork mob. It's the Dr. No simplicity that they tried to replicate with this, and they almost surpassed it. But in the last act, you're going, what are you doing? What is happening? Yeah.
This movie, I think this is just below Frankenstein. Like, that's where I'd be like, it's below.
Okay. All right, well, then you know what you have to do.
Look out! The lever! Get away from that lever!
Don't pull that lever again. You'll atomize this. Don't do it. Don't do it. No! Who do you want to toast to? You know who I want to toast to.
I was going to say Basil.
No, I will not.
But I mean, you want to toast to Lionel Atwill.
Let me tell you why, so maybe I can convince you. Because he's a good actor, and I guess he fits this movie. But I never imagined that I would fall in love with a one-armed man that would come walking through my door.
If I walked into this movie, I would have been like, yeah, it's going to go to Lugosi, but we don't usually double toast on movies. So
yeah, we already honored him with Dracula. Otherwise, we probably would. But even then, I think that the inspector is dope. And here's why. He's a rare, fully dimensional ancillary character within these movies. Most of the time, you just get whatever the barmaid who's like, hey, whoa, you know, and she's funny and goofy, but she's single dimensional and by design. She doesn't need to be three-dimensional. But here, we have somebody who would normally in the past just be the Burgermeister or the police or whatever. We've had nothing but goofy cops in these movies, and that's fine. You know, we don't need three-dimensional cop characters who just are the function, they're the symbol of the law, whatever.
I have my hat on. Meaning that I'm under arrest. Yes.
But this guy, the inspector, has a fully dimensional backstory that drives him, that plugs in with this film series. It's the monster that is the key to his backstory. He has a very distinct military manner that makes his missing arm all the more tragic, right? He's not just a one-armed man. He's very disciplined, and first thing he does is...
Yeah, he said, if I wasn't for this injury, I probably would have been a general or something like along those lines.
You're not supposed to shake hands with our left hand.
Peter.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was very, very rude of me.
You're not supposed to wear gloves in the house either.
Son, I'm sorry about that, too. But you see, I only have one real arm. This one isn't mine.
Well, whose is it?
You see, Inspector Krogh lost his other real arm in the war. He's a soldier.
Oh, are you a general?
No, he's something more than a general. He's an inspector.
And then on top of that, those two elements all inform a worldview whereby he must prevent what happened to him from happening to anybody else. And then, he immediately takes to the little boy, who you can assume was approximately his age when he had his arm ripped off. So he's not just like every other cop who just rolls in just to be there when goes down and he's just going to be like, stop that, I'm the law. He's a fully fleshed out character that you find incredibly sympathetic. Again, he is the guy who shoves in Wolf's face that this is real, right? And he's dedicated himself to not letting the past repeat. His character is on point beginning to end, whereas Wolf starts well and then becomes a useless idiot for no reason, to the point where I'm just like, I don't want to toast to him. I want to toast to the inspector, who's just awesome. Like he's flawless from beginning to end.
Okay.
He's a perfect character.
Why don't you ask him out? Why don't you go back in time and ask him out?
I love him.
He was 17 when they made this movie.
Another burst heart.
Okay, now I have to keep that joke in the previous episodes.
Also, interesting fact about him. I mentioned before Basil Rathbone played Sherlock Holmes, right?
Yeah.
Well, guess who played Professor Moriarty?
Dude, he's Moriarty?
Yeah, he's Moriarty. So he played Dr. James Moriarty in the film version of Hound in the Baskerville and in the Universal Studios film
Sherlock Holmes and the Secret Weapon.
So was that before or after this?
So the Fox one was 1939, same year as this movie, so I don't know if it was before or after. The other film was years later, so it was in 43. Okay. He played opposite of Basil Rathbone as Moriarty, which is fun. So that's cool.
He certainly made this movie for me. He's a straight G. He's a true detective. He doesn't quit when it counts, you know what I'm saying? And he was willing to sacrifice his fake arm and draw his pistol to gun down that monster, which didn't do anything. But it was a good distraction.
He was 16 years old when they shot the movie.
He was almost 16. He had a tight body back then. Anyway, to you, Mr. Lionel Atwill, I love you.
Yeah, I know you do.
Raise an official Universal Monsters mug.
There you go.
To Mr. Atwill. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
To the one-armed man.
To the one-armed man.
With the irresistible desire to penetrate the unknown, carry on. Even though the path is cruel and torturous, carry on. Like every seeker after truth, you will be hated, blasphemed, and condemned.
Goodbye.